Equal income distribution is the main challenge in Colombia, as only 2% pay income tax, says Paola Muller, IHS Global Insights. There was a sharp decrease of consumer confidence at the beginning of this year. Which factor of the economy would you say this is most linked to?
I think the most crucial factor for the decrease in confidence was the news and what was happening in the international environment. Oil prices decreased even more during the two first months of the year, reaching terrible lows of $26 per barrel. Those prices weren't seen like in, 25 years. We haven't seen those prices in 25 years. So consumers and economic agents in Colombia were aware of the situation, and that's when consumer confidence started weakening. And even worse than weakening, they stayed at negative levels. During February, as an example, consumer confidence at the lower social stratum showed the lowest confidence level since 2002. The other factor that was affecting also was that the economy was already starting to feel the negative supply shock of the low oil prices in 2015. Especially Colombia was hit in their external sectors, which was most affected at the beginning of the year, where fuel and oil exports suffered a major setback, decreasing a huge around 47%. The manufacturing export, albeit the depreciated exchange rate, also performed poorly, decreasing like around 18%. The overall results, like for the beginning of the year, were not being very optimistic.
Economic growth slowed in 2015 due to falling commodity prices. Where does Colombia stand when considering all the economies of Latin America where falling oil prices are concerned?
Well, the year that just passed, 2015, was without any doubt one that posed so many challenges for the Colombian economy. Lower oil prices, which, started a downward spiral on around mid-2014 in July, reached really low levels. Just to put a little bit in context, that the downtrending in crude prices was a result of demand and supply forces in the market, which generated a steep deflation in oil prices that brought an additional volatility to financial markets. With the additional China slowdowns, this induced even more lower prices in commodity prices, all this provoking the world economy to head in a deflationary spiral, with countries adjusting some countries adjusting more painfully than others. Of course, oil exporting countries were the most hit by this, and Colombia is an oil exporting country, and with oil exports accounting for more than 15% of their export revenues and 20% of their fiscal revenues before the shock. Colombia started to experience cash flow, credit deterioration, basically due to a very strong external and fiscal position with a very solid macroeconomic framework and a very efficient macroeconomic management in place. These factors, the solidness in the external factor, Colombia did not enjoy immunity. The economy decelerated, but if you add all and if you compare with the rest of Latin America, during 2015, the Colombian economy grew a relative healthy 3.1%, which is considered a very satisfactory growth rate when you compare other Latin American countries. I will give you, for example, an example. Argentina grew only 1.9%. Brazil, you may know, had a severe minus 3.7%, not to mention Venezuela, which had decreased 5.7%. Chile, which is also a very healthy and efficiently managed, in macroeconomic terms, country, only grew 2%. Peru, which grew 3.3%. However, you have to, if you put in a balance, and if you take into account that we're talking about a country that had 50% of their fiscal revenues in the oil sector, 50% of their export revenues in the oil industry, and 22% of their fiscal revenues that were coming from tax revenues from the oil company, Ecopetrol. It was really a huge achievement. So where does it stand? It stands still in a very vulnerable position because it's so dependent on the oil industry. However, it has all these buffers that have to do mainly with having managed the economy during the boom cycle in a very professional and technical manner.
According to the World Bank, in 2014, 24% of the population are based in rural areas, and the agriculture sector employs 16.9% of the workforce. However, only 13% of adults living in rural areas borrowed money from a formal financial institution. The average for Latin America stands at 11%. How do you see the sector progressing, considering the lack of progression in financial transactions?
This is more long-term structural issue. The problem with rural areas in Colombia and with trying to design policies to make these rural areas more developed, not only in terms of accessing financial credit, but also in terms of social development, education, sewage, etc., has to do with two factors. One, the problem with the guerrilla has dragged many formal institutions and harmed many social policies to go on a wider scale on the rural sector. So what we see in the future is that we hope that finally, with all these peace conversations, finally, the guerrilleros, armed force, the government, and civil society will come to an agreement where peace will be achieved.
A big thank you to Paola Muller, our guest for today. That is all from me, Lucy Porferman, but do stay with Dukescopy TV for everything FX. Bye for now.